Joey Mines. I'm a professional fishing guide on West Point Lake. I've been living in LaGrange for the past 10 years, and I've been fishing West Point Lake for the past 10 years, at least 200 to 250 days a year. Therefore, I feel like I'm qualified to give you some real good information on how to catch these big old bass. West Point is a unique lake. It is a structure lake. It is full of monster bass. So I'm going to go over today the 4 seasons. I'm going to go over fall, winter, spring, and summer. We're going to go out and we're going to show you the patterns, what to use, how to use them, and hopefully we're going to give you a lot of inside tips. I'm even going to mark a map for you at the end of this video, which I think will be a very big plus for you. So I'll see you on the water.
If you're a serious fisherman after trophy bass or a casual angler that loves being outdoors, then West Point Lake is for you. Created and managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, West Point has 525 miles of shoreline surrounding about 26,000 acres. This video is aimed at maximizing your fishing productivity on West Point Lake. Your host, Joey Mines, chose to shoot the video in the fall of the year when the lake level is lowered by the Army Corps of Engineers. When Joey talks about shorelines, graveled points, road beds, and other structures, you will be able to see them and better understand what Joey is talking about. When you come to West Point Lake in the fall or winter, you will actually see the same structures. In the spring and summer, those structures will be covered with water, but you'll know where they are, what they look like, and how to fish them. Considered one of the top bass lakes in the U.S., West Point regularly draws bass fishermen from all parts of the country and is a regular stop on the Bassmaster Pro Circuit. Listen to what a couple of pros said when Joey Mines asked them about West Point Lake.
Well, Joey, in my opinion, it's probably the premier big fish lake in the South. It's just a great lake. It's got a lot of fish in it, and what I like about it is a lot of big fish. You know, they got the 16-inch size limit down here, and since that's happened, it has really created just a tremendous fishery. And, you know, it's a lake that everybody can come down here and have a real good time on, because even if you don't catch keeper bass, you're going to catch a lot of fish, you know, and you're going to catch a lot of 2-pounders, a lot of 2.5-pounders that might not keep, but you're just going to have that enjoyment of reeling them in. And I'll tell you, it's one of the finest lakes I've ever been on.
Well, Joe, the lake is an excellent lake, and it's probably one of the best lakes around for big fish potential. As far as coming fishing, there's probably not a better lake in this part of the country to come and have a potential at catching a real good stringer of fish.
When it comes to catching a real good stringer of fish on West Point Lake, your host, professional fishing guide, and co-owner of LaGrange Outdoors, Joey Mines, is one of the best. When you make your trip to West Point Lake, be sure to stop by LaGrange Outdoors. Joey will be happy to give you an up-to-date report on where the big ones are hitting and what they're hitting on. Now let's rejoin Joey for a lesson in the art of catching bass on West Point Lake in the fall fishing season.
I'm in the back of one of my favorite creeks on this lake. It's called Wilson Creek, and it's an excellent creek for fall bassing. Today, the water temperature is running about 70 degrees. When I'm talking fall bassing, I look at temperatures from about 70 to 55, from 55 to 70, somewhere in that ballpark number. And today, like I say, we've got the 70 degrees, and these fish, what they have done, since the lake is down 7 foot, they've already migrated in the backs of these coves and the backs of these little creeks, and we're going to be fishing on some stumps and some different areas, and I'm going to go through a lot of basic ways to catch these fish. The first way is with a bango lure. And a bango lure is probably my favorite bait as far as a topwater bait on this lake. And this is an example of a bango lure. This is 5 inches long. This is the blue and black back. This is an excellent plug. It's got 3 sharp treble hooks. These hooks come and they're as sharp as razor blades, so you don't really need to sharpen the bango lure hook. What I've got 10-pound test strand line. I've got light line. A lot of people don't believe in that light line, but I think it's very important because light line will let this plug twist and be more natural on the water. If you use 17 or possibly 20-pound test, it is not near as effective. You won't catch as many fish because they won't chase after it. I'm using today a spinning rod, and this is a Quantum spinning rod. This is a 5.5 foot model with the medium heavy action on it. And I'm using a MD20, QMD20 Zebco reel. And this is a 5.4 gear ratio model, and it's excellent for throwing these bangle lures because you need something that can catch up with that bass if he grabs it. You've got to have something that'll react to it very quickly. So now I'm going to pull up in the back of these creeks. Like I say, I'm in the back of Wilson Creek, and I'm going to show you these stumps, and I'm going to show you these brush tops and just how to work this bangle lure.
For fall fishing, throw the bangle lure in shallow water where structure is evident. Look for stumps, rocks, and underwater bushes. Be sure to throw the bangle lure beyond the structure. When retrieving the bangle lure, use a twitching motion to make it move and dip like an injured minnow. Keep your line as tight as you can and be prepared to react quickly when a bass strikes. The next lure for fall fishing is a spinnerbait.
Today what I've got a MEP spinnerbait, and this is a top-of-the-line spinnerbait right here. Several ways to tell that you've got an excellent plug. One of them is to test how sharp your hook is. You can actually take your thumb, stick it on the hook itself, and if it will not pull or if it will scrape, you've got an excellently sharp hook. If you don't have that, you need to sharpen your hook. MEP spinner comes with an excellent hook. I believe in the willow leaf blade, of which you can see right here is a big blade. I've got a 3/8 ounce head on this with a chartreuse skirt, and this is an excellent color on this lake. I'm not going to really get into colors today because on different parts of the lake you're going to use different colored skirts. If that water is clear, you definitely want to use the white skirt and really the nickel blade. But if it is dingy or muddy, you're going to probably want to use something similar to what I've got right here. So I'm going to cast a couple of times next to this structure and show you just how this little old bait will work. What I've got also is an excellent outfit for fishing with a spinnerbait, and this is a brand new reel that has just come out. It's called a Quantum 381, and what this is a cranking reel. And when I say cranking, I know you're thinking I'm talking about a big old crankbait, but when you use a great big old willow leaf spinnerbait like this, it is cranking. It's a hard way to bring your plug in. This reel with the 3.8 gear ratio makes it a lot easier. It's brand new this year. It just came out. I've only had this reel for about a month, and it is probably the biggest breakthrough I've ever seen as far as fishing reels. What I've also got, I've got a new Quantum rod, and this is a 7-foot model. And this is an excellent rod for fishing this spinnerbait. It's got a good action to it. You can feel the vibration of those blades, because if that vibration stops, you're subject to have a big old bass. So let me cast this out, and I'll show you how to work this in.
Like the bangle lure, spinnerbait should be thrown past the structure. Bring the spinnerbait to the surface, then let it flutter back down. Time your retrieve to allow the spinnerbait to flutter down close to the structure. Additional spinnerbait tips to remember are: use 12 to 14 pound test line. Vary the depths to which you allow the spinnerbait to flutter down. Use big spinners for bigger fish. The next lure we'll look at is a rattle trap.
A rattle trap is probably the easiest plug when I'm guiding that people use. I carry them out and we will fish the little points, the little ledges, and it is excellent. It's very simple to use. What I'm using today, I've got a Quantum 1610 reel, and I've got it spooled with 10-pound test line also. And that lighter line will give this a lot better wobble. I've got it on a 6-foot Quantum rod, which is an excellent outfit for throwing something like a rattle trap. It's very simple how to throw it, and just look for structure, throw past it, and rip it on by it. Just throw past it and rip it on by it. It's very easy. Very easy to use. If you're not an avid fisherman, this is probably the easiest bait you'll ever throw. It's got a lot of weight to it. You can throw it for miles. So it's an excellent way to catch a big bass on this lake. When you're fishing a rattle trap, I like to hit the little secondary points at this time of year.
When water temperatures are around 55 degrees, bass will frequently bunch up on rocky secondary points that retain heat from the sun. With the rattle trap, cover as much of the shallow water around the point as you possibly can. Position your boat to cast parallel to the point. Then just throw the rattle trap and reel it in. With 10-pound line, the rattle trap will do the work. Now let's look at buzz baits.
One of my favorite plugs this time of year also, we're still talking about the fall of the year, is a buzz bait. There's several excellent kinds of buzz baits on the market today, and they've all got some real good points to be made about each one of them. But today we're talking about basic buzz baits. I'm talking about one that's got the big blade up front and the long stem on it with a very sharp hook. And all we're going to do as far as colors, they're very similar to if you were using a spinnerbait. If I use a white spinnerbait, I will use a white buzz bait because they go hand in hand. Water clarity has a lot to do with it, and I think it's very important to stay with the same colors that work for you. On this lake, there's 3 basic colors to use: the white, the chartreuse, and really the yellow. And that's the only 3 I use. You might have a little bit of blue that might be strung in on a couple of strands, but stick with those 3 basic colors. The best colored blade is a nickel blade, bar none. Unless this water is completely red mud, don't go with the copper blade. Stay with the nickel. What I've got in front of me, I've got a couple of areas I'd like to demonstrate how to throw this buzz bait. This is a 3/8 ounce buzz bait. I've got it spooled with 12-pound test strand line. I've got a Quantum 1610 reel on a Quantum transmitter rod, which is a 6-foot rod. This is an excellent rod for working this buzz bait. You've got to be able to throw this thing out and get it to the surface as quickly as possible. So basically you throw it out, just like I've just done, get it on top immediately. You've got to get it up top and then just keep working it back to the boat. I like to put a little flip in my buzz bait and make it twitch, just like you see right there.
The buzzbait is one of the most versatile of fall lures. With it, you fish stumps, underwater brush, rocks, or shallow points. Throw the buzzbait to the same structure several times. This will often irritate unresponsive fish and cause them to strike. Also, fish the buzzbait all the way back to the boat. Remember, throw past the structure and retrieve the buzzbait with a twitching motion.
One thing I'd like to reemphasize, if I was really serious about catching a bass today, I wouldn't have been running all over these banks and things trying to show you exactly how to work it. But I feel like it's more important to show you how to catch these bass. We're going to probably do a video in the next few months that's going to show you catching some bass on this lake. But this one is strictly instructional. We want you to catch these bass. We want you to learn something today. We want you to learn about West Point Lake. The next pattern we're going to talk about is wintertime fishing. And I'm going to ease us out into the main part of the lake and show you some deep structure and some ways to catch these big old bass.
To get the most out of winter fishing, you will need to locate certain types of structure and know where the fish are in relation to the structure. A liquid crystal or paper graph is a must. At the end of this video, Joey will examine with you actual graph recordings taken in winter months to show you exactly what to look for. A good place to start is on one of the many submerged roadbeds on West Point Lake. The asphalt surface of the roadbed retains some heat, and the slightly warmer temperatures attract fish.
The way that I catch them is one of 2 ways, is with a Mr. Twister jig. And it's a very simple jig. It is a 3/8 ounce, and it's got a number 11A pork frog. And this is an Uncle Josh pork frog, and it is blue-black in color. This is probably my favorite color. I've said before, I love blue. I love blue. I love to throw anything blue on this lake. And what I've got 14-pound test strand line right here. This is excellent line for throwing a jig and pig. I've got it on a 6-foot quartz transmitter rod, and this is an excellent rod. It's made by Quantum. You need a good rod to feel these fish with this jig and pig, because when they hit it, you've got to be quick, and you've got to get him as fast as you can. You can't wait. You can't wait at all. I've got an excellent Quantum 1610 reel, and it's a high-speed reel to help you reel down and set that hook hard. what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the motion of how to work this jig and pig. All you've got to do is really just throw it out, let it sink all the way to the bottom. Let it sink all the way to the bottom. And since these fish are slowed down and the metabolism is very slow, I'm going to take forever to reel this thing in. I'm going to do my wrist, and all I'm doing, I'm not even reeling. I'm just twitching. I'm just twitching back and forth, just like you see right there. And that is an excellent way to get a strike. I'm not even reeling. I'm really not reeling at all. I'll just go back and forth over an area. And when you finally feel him, you've got to reel down real fast and pop him. You've got to set that hook hard. You've got to get him quick. But one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they come to West Point Lake in the wintertime is they fish too fast. They throw these big old crankbaits and they burn them back to the boat. They do a lot of things that really cause a problem. The next way that I catch fish is with a jigging spoon. I've got a 3/4 ounce jigging spoon right here. And to give you an idea of just how good a jigging spoon is on West Point Lake, BASS had a tournament here last year in December, and they came down and it was won with a jigging spoon, and they caught like 30 pounds of bass in one day. So we're talking a lot of fish can be caught with the jigging spoon. It's very easy to use, and the way I use it, I've got 14-pound test strand line right here, which is excellent line to use with a jigging spoon. I've got a 7-foot rod, which is a very stiff rod. I feel like you need a stiff rod for jigging a spoon. I've got this new cranking reel, of which I like to work it fairly slow. All you've got to do, it's very easy, just let it drop to the bottom, just like you see me do right there. Let it sit on the bottom and just rip it, just like that, just like that. Let it sit right off the bottom. These fish are very sluggish this time of year, and what I've done, I've got a marker right in front of me, and when I'm fishing in the wintertime, I fish almost right next to that marker, because I will mark those fish, and then I'll come back and I will just go round and round that marker, jigging that spoon. There's several ways to do it. This is the way I like it. I like to just kind of pop it every other 2 or 3 seconds. But there are a lot of people that, for example, they'll rip it that high, and that works also. You've got to find out really what those fish are doing on a given day. They will bite it different on different days. Another way to work it is to let it sit all the way on the bottom, just like I've got right there, and just twitch it. Just twitch it, just that easy. And when you feel them hit it, you've got to set the hook hard. And if you do, you'll probably catch that bass. A lot of people make the mistake of saying, well, I think I've got one playing with it. I think he might have hit that thing. Never take the chance. Always set that hook. And the reason is, a bass this time of year, he's hitting it out of frustration a lot of times. He's going to hit it, and when you catch him, it's going to be in the edge of his mouth. That hook is going to be barely in there. So you're going to have a lot of strikes anyway, and they're going to be extremely tough to catch. But they are catchable bass. So make sure when they hit it, pop him hard. Pop him hard. Don't let him run with it. The wintertime fishing is extremely tough, but it can be very productive. Make sure you try these road beds and these humps. These fish, like I say, they're going to be in the possibly 20 to even 30 foot of water, but they are catchable bass. The next thing we're going to talk about is springtime fishing, and boy, does it get hot on this lake.
There is no question that springtime bass fishing is the most productive time of the year on West Point Lake. The water is warming up, and concentrations of fish can be found in shallow water in the backs of coves. Roberts Creek is one of Joey's favorite springtime spots. The shoreline is rocky, providing heat retention in shallow water, and the back of the cove is grassy. Roberts Creek is an excellent place to locate spring spawning bass.
This is the time of year when you bring your people down that don't know how to fish. You can catch them. This is when you hear about these monster stringers of bass, because you can pull up in a cove and they're subject to be anywhere. So one way that I like to catch them is with a Texas rig worm. And I'm going to show you one right here. I'm sure a lot of you know what a Texas rig worm is, but this is an 8-inch worm. It's a blue worm, and I like blue. If it's not blue, you're not fishing. Blue is probably the #1 color on West Point Lake. I like the blue-black pork frog, and I definitely like a blue worm. I use several different kinds. This one right here is an excellent make. It's got a hard plastic. I use a #2 aught hook, of which is a 45 automatic hook, of which I feel like is probably the best hook for setting a hook on a big old bass. I've got it spooled with, this is 14-pound test line. And the reason is we're going to be throwing back in some little grassy flats and up on some stumps and some different areas. And you're subject to catch on to a big bass, and he's going to get you hung up in the brush if you don't have something that can get him out of there. Some people this time of year will use 17-pound test line, but I try and go with the lightest line possible. I've also got right here a 1/16 ounce weight, of which is very, very light, and that's all you need for this time of year. You need to use as little a weight as possible. Therefore, when that bass picks up that plug, he's got very little resistance. He doesn't feel this weight. This is what you want to use in shallow water. If I was fishing out in 30 foot of water, I might use a 1/2 ounce. I might even use a 1 ounce weight to help get it to the bottom. But since we're in the back of this cove, I'm going to use the 1/16 ounce weight. What I look for in the springtime, I look for basically shoreline. I'm in the back of, like I say, Roberts Creek, excellent creek. All I've got to do is run the shoreline, and this is why they catch these fish. All you do is throw it, just like you've seen right there. I throw it up into the shallow water, and I take my time working this worm back to the boat. I'll let it settle to the bottom, then I'll reel it up and let it settle back to the bottom. It's important that you work this worm as slow as possible. If you don't, you're going to catch small fish. A big old bass, he wants it slow at this time of year. One thing I'd like to emphasize again, I know I've said it several times, is that this lake is down. It's down 7 foot. This little cove right here, you see a bunch of structures. You see the stumps behind me. You see a lot of brush in the backs of these little creeks. Visualize the lake being up, I guess, another 7 to possibly even 8 foot. And you'll understand what I'm saying about this is the exact reason why I wanted to show you this when the lake is down. Because if the lake was full, you could not visualize that there's stump beds, there's little gravel pits, there's rocks, there's trees, there's a little bit of everything. The worm is one of my favorite lures for fishing this time of year. But one thing that I'd like to bring up, it is not the only lure. There are several good ones. And what's amazing about this is these same lures are used in the fall. I covered them a little bit earlier in the video when I talked about using the bango lure. Bango lure is tremendous. It is tremendous on this lake. You throw it around these little bushes and around these little stumps that you see over my shoulder, and you're going to catch a big old bass. They can't stand it. They cannot stand it at that time of year. A spinnerbait is excellent. They will come up and they're monster bass. They've been laying in that deep water and they can't stand it. Another way to catch them is with the rattle trap. I talked about the rattle trap and I showed you a couple of points and I showed you how to work that rattle trap. Do the same thing, because what they will do, they will start migrating in these creeks, in these little feeder creeks. Where in Roberts Creek, they'll do the same thing with Yellow Jacket Creek, Beach Creek, Maple Creek. Hit all those little points. That'll be their stopping off place. Hit them with the rattle trap. Then, once they finally move back up in here, when that water temperature hits 65 or 70 degrees, it gets unbelievable. That's when you can catch the big bass, you can catch the large numbers, and you can catch them with the rattle trap still in the backs of the coves. You can catch them with this worm. Another plug, the buzz bait. I showed you how to work the buzz bait. Remember, throw that thing past these logs, past these stumps, and buzz it by the top of them, because you're going to be in for a big surprise. This 16-inch size limit has set this lake on fire, and that's the one time of year that these fish are very, very, very vulnerable. There's no question about it. So try the buzz bait, the bango lure, the 8-inch worm, of which, don't forget, throw that blue worm. Don't throw the pinks, don't throw the purples, don't throw the reds, throw the blue. Blue is by far, if you've only got one worm in your tackle box, make it a blue worm on West Point Lake. So really, springtime fishing is a lot of fun. I think you'll be very excited and impressed with springtime on this lake. The only problem you might run into is a little bit of the way the weather is. For example, if you have major fronts blow in here, take that into consideration. If you've got a strong northwest wind that blows for 3 days straight, let it calm down for a couple of days before you try and come down here and catch these bass. These bass are like other bass, and they're very vulnerable at that time of year to the weather because they're shallow. If you have a front and it's pouring down rain and a lot of wind, wait a day. Wait 2 days before you come in here and then see what you can do. The next thing that we're going to talk about is by far my favorite time of the year. This is called summertime bassing.
In the month of May, spawning season at West Point Lake is usually over. Water temperatures in the shallow coves will rise to 85 degrees. The bass will see cooler temperatures in deeper water. At West Point Lake, the largest concentration of summertime bass will be in the main river channels on underwater humps, islands, roadbeds, or off underwater ledges. Like in wintertime fishing, a paper graph or liquid crystal fish finder is almost a must. Of equal importance, though, is a basic knowledge of what triggers bass' summertime feeding habits. West Point is a power generation lake held back by a dam that stretches 7,000 feet and rises almost 100 feet above the Chattahoochee Riverbed. Thousands of gallons of water flow from one side of the dam to the other, creating severe upriver currents. The current is intensified around humps and ledges, and that stirs up the bait fish. And when bait fish are active, so are the bass. So before you come to West Point in the summer, check with the Army Corps of Engineers or call LaGrange Outdoors to find out what hours the dam is generating. Approximately 1/2 hour after the power generation starts, the current will be at its peak, and so will summertime deep water bass feeding. Joey suggests for the dog days of summer a deep water crankbait. Watch and listen.
I have not talked about a crankbait at all during this video, and now is the time when I'm going to break one out. There's only one crankbait, in my opinion, that you really need on West Point Lake. You need the great big ones. This is a Bagley's DB3 dredge, and it is excellent. There's nothing better than this DB3 dredge. There's 3 colors that you need to be throwing. One of them, this is the gray ghost, the Tennessee shad, and the silver and black back. If you've only got 3 plugs in your tackle box, make sure that one of them is this dredge. It's very simple how to use it. I've got a 7.5 foot rod, of which you need a long rod to throw these big old crankbaits out, and there's a reason for that. I've got a high-speed, I do not have a high-speed reel today. I've got this new Quantum 3.8-to-1 gear ratio reel, and that is going to help me throw the plug out and reel it and really bring it back to the boat. The way that we're going to throw this dredge out, I'm going to throw it out of sight. Hopefully I'm going to throw it as far as maybe 40 yards or even 50 yards if at all possible. I've got 10-pound test line. You've got to have light line to throw this plug. I'm going to throw it out, and if you can visualize, here's your plug sitting on top of the water. This dredge sinks. It sinks at about a foot per second. And if I'm throwing on an underwater island that is, say, in 15 foot of water, I'm going to let this dredge sink for about 15 seconds. And as it sinks, I'm sitting there thinking about all these bass, of course, and it's hard to wait 15 seconds. I take a lot of guide parties out, and I say, let it sink to the bottom, let it sink to the bottom. But they can't stand it. They see these fish, and they crank it in too fast. But what they do, they crank it in too fast, and it comes above the fish. Throw this plug out, let it sink. All right, here we go. It's sinking down. It's sinking down. It just hit the 15-foot level. It's been 15, maybe 20 seconds. Now, this is probably the most critical thing I'm going to show you. Take this big old 7.5 foot rod and stick it down in the water as far as you can stick it, just like this. And people laugh at me, they come by and they think I'm going slap crazy. But it's very simple. Stick that rod down in the water, and the reason is you've got another 5 foot that this rod will go down the water, and this plug that I've just thrown out is sunk to the bottom. It's beating along the bottom. I'm cranking it as hard as I can. And if I've got that rod down in the water, it'll come up at the boat like this. If I'm holding my rod up this high, that plug, it was already on the bottom. The first thing it's going to do is start coming up. It's going to start coming up. It's a good point to be made. So many people make the mistake of throwing these crankbaits all day long and not throwing them the right way. I come in behind other boats that are fishing all these points and humps and road beds, and they're not catching fish. They're throwing the same plug. They're using the same pound test line. They're using even the same reel. The one thing they have forgotten to do is stick that rod down the water. Don't forget, stick the rod down, crank it hard back to the boat. Another way to catch bass in the summertime is with a jig and pig. I talked about this in the wintertime fishing, and it is an excellent way to catch them in the summertime. Use the 3/8 ounce, the 5/16 ounce jigs, and use the blue-black pork. Just bring one kind of pork frog, blue-black. That's the only color you need on this lake. You can try maybe a black or a blue, but blue-black works best for me. Another way to catch them in the summertime is with this little baby right here. And this is another Texas rig worm. And I will use anywhere from an 8-inch to possibly even a 10-inch worm. Which blue, give me a blue worm and I'm happy. I like to throw these big old worms. And what I have here, I've got 14-pound test line. And I use a 1/2 ounce weight. And the reason is, we're throwing out into 18, 20, possibly 25 foot of water. So it's important that you've got plenty of weight to get it down on the bottom as quickly as possible so that it will maintain contact with the bottom. These big old bass will eat a big worm during that time of year. You work the worm very, very slow. Just throw it out and you take your time and you work it back to the boat. These big bass, they like it slow. It's just like in the wintertime. Don't buzz one of these worms back to the boat. Take your time. It's very important. Don't rush anything. The next way that we're going to talk about catching these big old bass, I cannot go any longer without telling you. It is with the Ron Savage worm. What we're going to do, we're going to go in and we're going to eat some lunch. And I'm going to have Ron Savage explain just how his worm works. It is a Carolina rigged worm, and it is probably the hottest worm on this entire lake. And if we're lucky, I'm going to talk Ron into going out and catching some fish, because I believe you might want to see a couple of fish just to give us a little bit of credibility. We just finished lunch back at Highland Marina. Before Ron Savage comes out and explains his worm and what makes it so unique on West Point Lake, I'm going to take this opportunity to show you the graph. I've got a couple of pieces of graph paper, and I'm going to show you what to look for when you come down to West Point Lake. I'm also going to show you the maps. I've got some maps that have got the 4 seasons broken down, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite spots, and we're going to get into a lot of detail. We're going to count telephone poles. We're going to do everything we can to help you catch these bass. First, let's take a look at the pieces of graph paper that I brought with me. I've got 2 pieces of graph paper. One of them was taken today, of which this is the top piece right here. And what you will notice is this is a road bed. I'm going to take my pen and run it up across the road bed itself. And there we go, running across the top. One thing that's very evident, there are not any fish sitting on top of this road bed. This is very critical. These bass on this lake, they will be sitting on the road bed when they're feeding. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. We didn't fish here because there's nothing there. What you can look for, there's your bass right there. I've got it circled. And that bass is sitting in about 10 foot of water. And he is not a feeding bass. That is called a suspended bass. I've also circled up above him the bait fish, and those bait fish are in about 7 to 8 foot of water. This is a terrible situation. This is something that you definitely don't want when you're out looking for bass. We've got several scattered throughout the graph. There's one right there. There's one right there. There's some more bait fish right there. The big thing that I see is these fish are not feeding on this underwater road bed, and We didn't fish, like I say, there's no need to. I took a picture also back in January. I said, we can come on down. Back in January, I took a picture of a lot of fish. And these fish I caught that very day. You can see we graphed another road bed, and I'm running up and down over the road bed. And what I have circled are a bunch of bass. They're sitting on the bottom. The bait fish are down there. The big bass are down there. And I caught a tremendous stringer. This was in January. These fish are sitting on the bottom. They are feeding bass. You can follow as they go. There's some that are suspended, but there are a lot of them that are scattered all over the bottom. And this is a very good picture of what you look for throughout the year. You look for these fish that are scattered all across the bottom. Whenever they're on the bottom, they're feeding, and these are catchable fish. Another point about these, they're scattered throughout the bottom. This is a lot better than, say, having 8 or 10 of them stacked right on one little corner. When they're scattered all over the top of the road bed, they're in a feeding mood, and that is what we're looking for today. Now let us take a look at these maps. I'm going to show you some of my favorite spots to catch these bass on West Point Lake. I'm going to show you in detail how to catch them. First, let's take a look at fall and spring fishing. The fall and spring is very similar, so like I say, I'm going to cover them at one time. We're going to put in at Highland Marina, which is here's Highland Marina. We're going to work our way up Yellow Jacket Creek, which we're going up Yellow Jacket. And we're going to come to a creek called Jackson Creek. Jackson Creek is a very good place to fish in it. It's got a lot of gravel points. It's got a lot of little jagged edges that come out on these rocks. So you want to fish these little pockets that I'm marking right here. All these little pockets are excellent. Real good place to fish. Throw your rattle trap in there, throw your worm, throw your bangle lure. These are very good fall places to catch a bass. So let's come out of Jackson Creek. We're going to come back down. Come on back down. All right, we're back at Highland Marina. Just keep coming on down the lake. We're coming on down. The next stop is going to be Whitewater Creek. And we're going to go up in Whitewater. And this is another good spot to fish during this time of year in that it's got a lot of points, and it's very similar to Jackson Creek that I just showed you. All of these little spots are real good this time of year. The water, especially in the springtime, will be completely full. It'll be at 635, which will be the lake level, and all of these pockets will hold a lot of fish. There'll be some grass in there because of the lake being down this year 7 foot. So hit all of those little pockets. Very good place to fish. All up in here, all up in here. In the fall fishing, with the lake being down 7 foot, you're going to see these rocks that are sticking out on these different points. And you can catch a lot of fish this time of year, right in these little areas right here, off every one of these points. We're going to come out of Whitewater Creek. Just keep coming on down. We're going to go past the bridge, and the next stop is going to be Wilson Creek. Now, I showed you Wilson Creek earlier today, and I showed you what the banks and all look like, and it is very similar to Whitewater and Jackson Creek. Work all of these little pockets. When the lake is full, throw up in the shallow water and use your top water plugs, your bangle lure, your buzz baits. You can catch a lot of nice fish. They will migrate into Wilson Creek, so you definitely want to hit that creek. All right, let's come out of Wilson Creek, come on down the lake. The next stop is Roberts Creek. Now, we showed you Earl Cook roadbed, of which it is exposed right now with the lake being down 7 foot. This is a stopover place in the spring and in the fall, so you definitely want to check this. Throw any kind of plug in here. You can throw a jig and pig in here, you can throw a worm, you can throw a bangle lure. Just run it up and down these edges, because they're subject to be schooling on top of this road at any time. So come on back, and the first place is a very good point. It's got a lot of gravel on it. You want to hit that point right there. Roberts Creek goes all the way back in the back, and with the lake being full, this is a good place to catch bass also. All up in here. Excellent place. All right, let's come back out of Roberts Creek and start working our way towards the dam. And the next spot that we'll stop is Bird Creek, and it's called BC. And you'll see that on these marker buoys. That's one point I really haven't made today, but when you're in these creeks, it'll have the different letters on it, and that stands for the creek. And so that's BC for Bird Creek. Come on up in Bird Creek. It's got a lot of gravel. Excellent springtime hole, excellent fall hole. Work all these little pockets. All right, we'll come out of there, and we'll work our way all the way to the dam. Just keep coming down to the dam. And then we're going to cut back up into what is called Maple Creek. And Maple Creek runs all the way up here, and here's a road bed. Now this is a paved road that the cars still run across. Go under this road bed and fish all of these little pockets. Real good place to fish, all up in there. All right, we're back at Highland Marina, and we're going to talk about wintertime fishing. We're going to leave Highland Marina, come out of the Highland Marina Cove, and start working our way towards the dam. The first place we're going to stop is the McGee Roadbed. This is a tremendous place for catching a bass year-round. Wintertime is no exception. You can come in here with a little George or a jig and pig and catch a bunch of fish. These are fish during that time of year that'll bunch up, and you can catch one right after another. This is an old bridge right here. There's your river channel running right there. And this bridge was blown, and they've got all of those pilings scattered on about 3 humps that are sitting right off the end of this roadbed. And it is a paved roadbed. It is probably one of the best spots on the entire lake year-round. So don't forget to hit the McGee Roadbed right out of Highland Marina. All right, we're going to work our way on down the lake. We're going to come on down the lake. And another very good spot, here's the railroad trestle. Now this is a railroad trestle that is still in existence. You can't help but see this because you've got to go under it. But before you go under it, count 7 telephone poles from the river. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 telephone poles, and move out about 50 yards. And I have circled right here of what is an underwater island. And this island during the winter months is sitting in about 10 to 12 foot of water. And that's not where you're going to really catch your bass. You're going to catch your bass off the end of it in about 18 to 20 foot of water. But this is also an excellent place to catch big old hybrid. So don't be surprised when you run your graph through there and you see a lot of fish. They might be a hybrid, but there are a lot of big bass that are caught also in this one little spot. So don't forget the 7 telephone poles 50 yards out. Once we leave there, we'll go up towards Whitewater Creek, and we're going to come to another roadbed. And this is a paved road of which you can see coming out of the woods, and this is another good spot to catch a bass during the wintertime. You can use your jig there, you can use your jig and pig also, and catch a lot of bass. Very good spot. The top of this will be sitting in about 15 foot of water, so you definitely want to hit that spot during the winter. All right, let's come out of Whitewater Creek. We're going to go under the railroad trestle. We're going to go under Highway 109, coming from LaGrange, of which this is Highway 109 right here. Work our way all the way down the lake. And the next spot is Glass Bridge Road. And this is a roadbed that runs all the way across the lake. And during the winter months, one of the best spots is on this side right here, where you can catch a big bass. The top of this roadbed will be sitting in about 20 foot of water because the lake is down about 7 foot during the winter. So when it's full pool, you're talking 27 foot right here. It's a real good wintertime hole. You definitely want to hit right there. There's also a continuation of this roadbed of which we can come back right here. And you heard me talk about Roberts Creek. Here's Roberts Creek right here. There's Roberts Creek. I do a lot of fishing in Roberts Creek. There is a roadbed right here. It's called the Earl Cook Roadbed, right there. That is probably one of the top 5 spots in the wintertime. There's a lot of people that fish it, but there's a lot of fish caught on this roadbed. So the top of this is sitting in about 20 foot of water, and you definitely want to hit right there. So let's come out of the Earl Cook Roadbed and work our way down the lake. Here we go. We're going to go all the way down the lake, and then as you can see, right down here is West Point Dam. we're going to turn and go back up, and we're going to go up Maple Creek. Maple Creek is a very good creek for wintertime fishing. And one thing you'll notice, here's another road bed. It's called the Potts Road. Make sure you fish the Potts Road. You want to fish on this side right here, right off the end of it, and you're subject to catch a 9 or a 10-pound bass. There was a lot of big bass caught this past year in the wintertime right off of this road bed right here. One thing about wintertime fishing, fish these road beds. I've showed you 4 or 5 of them, and they are very good places to catch a bass during the winter. One point to be made about this wintertime fishing, it does get cold down here on West Point Lake. Don't let anybody kid you. Make sure that you wear these insulated clothes, the snowmobile suits, everything that can keep you warm, because it is extremely cold during the month of January and February. Now let's take a look at summertime fishing, and it is by far my favorite time of year to catch a bass. So we're going to start right here at Highland Marina, which we've started all of them at Highland. We're going to come out of Highland, and this time we're going to go up the river. This is the Chattahoochee River right here. And during the summertime, when they crank those generators up at the dam and create that current, it runs a current all across all of these points that I've got marked right here. And these are very good points to hit, especially when they're pulling water at the dam. Don't even come to this lake unless they're pulling water. You will not catch a fish. You will not get a bite, let alone not catch a fish. Hit all of these points, all of these points. Work your way on up the Chattahoochee, and here's some more points. What I've done is just show you a few of the points that are on this lake, but there are a bunch of good spots, especially in this little section right here, for catching a bass when they crank those generators up. So once we get right there, I'm going to turn around and let's start heading back down the lake. All right? We're going to come back down, and the next stop, we're going to go up Yellow Jacket Creek, of which here's Yellow Jacket Creek right here, and start hitting points on Yellow Jacket. There are a lot of big fish that'll move in there, especially when that water's being pulled. Don't ever underestimate what will happen when they crank those generators up. Hit each one of these points. These are very good points to hit. All of these right here. Throw your crankbaits in there, throw your Ron Savage worms in there, throw a lot of things in there, throw anything in there. You're subject to catch a big bass all along here. Crankbait being the #1 plug. All right, we're going to work our way on back down. And here's Highland Marina again. We're back at Highland, and we're going to continue down the lake. We're coming back down the lake. And the next stop, I've already showed you. Remember the railroad trestle? I counted 7 telephone poles. A very good spot to hit during the summertime. Make sure you crank it with those big crankbaits. The DB3 dredge would probably be the #1 plug to throw right here. You're subject to catch a 10 or even a 12-pound fish. I saw a 12-pounder caught on this very hump last year. So definitely got to hit this place right here. Now we're going to work our way up Whitewater Creek. And don't forget that road bed that I showed you in the wintertime. It holds fish in the summer. Make sure you hit it. And then start hitting all these little points, all up Whitewater, all those little points. They'll hold fish when they're pulling water at the dam. We're going to leave Whitewater. We're going to come back under the railroad trestle, and the next stop is the Lanier Lake Dam, of which there's really one spot to fish on this dam, and it's right here. This is where the dam was, and this is a very good spot for catching a big bass. You're subject to catch a big hybrid here also, especially in the summertime. Run your graph across this area. It'll be sitting in about 22 to 24 foot of water. And if these fish are on the bottom, throw your marker out and spend an hour or two there. Give these fish a chance to bite. You're subject to catch a big one. So let's leave the Lanier Dam. Past, this is 109 Bridge. We're going to go under the bridge, work our way all the way down, all the way down. And the next stop is Roberts Creek. And we've talked about Roberts Creek several times, and that Earl Cook road bed is still good in the summertime. So make sure you hit it. The lake is going to be full in the summer. It'll be at 6:35, and you can crank a lot of big fish out of these areas right here. So really, those are my favorite spots in the summer. I concentrate on really the Earl Cook roadbed, a lot of underwater islands, from there to Highland Marina. I've just covered some of my favorite spots on West Point Lake. I've showed them to you on the map, and I hope that'll be a lot of help to you. But one point you need to do, and you've got to do this, you've got to get one of these maps, and you've got to mark some spots. Take the time to sit down and go. You've got to mark some spots. Take the time to sit down and go over the details and study these maps. It'll help you a lot when you come down to West Point Lake. If you have any questions about anything you saw on the maps I showed you, come by my store at LaGrange Outdoors or even give us a call. We'll be glad to help you, because when you come down here, we want you to catch a lot of nice fish. And the only way you're going to do it is to study these maps, because this is a structure lake. This is not a lake you just come and beat the banks. This is a structure lake, and that is a very important point. Now, I'm going to go find Ron Savage, and we're going to go over some of the details of how to work that Savage worm, of which I feel like is a very good worm to use on West Point Lake.
Joey Mines and Ron Savage are longtime friends and fishing partners. The respect that each has for the other's fishing ability will become evident as they needle each other during the Savage worm explanation and later go fishing. It's a reminder of what fishing should be all about: relaxing and enjoying yourself.
Several things that I've covered in this video about the different seasons. I've talked about fall, winter, spring, and summer. And I've got Ron Savage with me right now, and he is the maker of the Savage worm. I failed to mention that a Savage worm does work on this lake a little bit. What season does that worm work best in?
Joey, this worm works in all seasons.
I knew he was going to say that, and that's why I waited to let him tell you. This is probably the only lure that does work year-round on West Point Lake. Ron, I want you to explain to everybody why it's a special worm, and maybe just explain what we need to do.
Okay, Joey, this is a fishing system. First off, it's not just fishing a plastic worm. We have a system of fishing in that we are using a very heavy weight here. This is a 1/2 to 1 ounce weight with a bead that you can pick up in any craft store, a number 5 barrel swivel.
Okay.
From there, we get to the worm itself.
All right.
I just happen to have a pack.
Just happen to have a pack of these Savage worms, okay?
As you can see, it gives you the directions right on front if you didn't pick up what I said as far as how to rig the worm.
I'm glad they don't have a picture of it, because you wouldn't be able to sell these worms. What do you think about that?
I don't know about that. Just simply tear it open like this and throw this in the lake for advertising. Just kidding, folks. Don't litter up our lakes.
All right.
All right, when you get the worm unfolded here with the line off of it, as you can see, it has a tremendous bend behind the second hook.
You can't get that bend out.
That bend needs to stay in there, Joey. It's a very critical part of the action of the worm. Joey, you can see when it comes out of the package, you've got a 42-inch leader here, and you can see it's kind of crinkled up here a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's the way my fishing line looks on my reels.
Is that the way it looks? Well, I'm going to show you how you can straighten it out on the worm and not necessarily on your reels.
All right.
You take the leader line like this, and you just run it across your pants legs like this. And this will straighten this monofilament line, as you can see, right out.
That's a good trick. That's a very good trick, because if that worm stays kinked up and you try and make a cast with it, it's going to be knotted up into 27,000 pieces by the time it gets back to the boat.
That's right, Joey. And this is 14-pound test leader on this leader line. And the reason the leader line is 42 inches long is I experimented with this worm with different size leaders for a couple of years before I put it on the market. And the 42-inch leader allows that worm to float up just enough behind that 1 ounce weight to give it be very attractive to the fish. Okay, once you get this worm straightened out like this, then of course you just simply, your favorite knot, whatever knot.
A square knot will work well.
Might work, not a square knot. I tie an improved cinch knot here. You can see I make a loop like this. Hold the loop between your index finger and your thumb. Bring it up tight, just about to close it. Wrap it 3 or 4 times like this. Run it through both loops, and then back through your big loop like this, and then you just pull it up tight. like this.
I'm impressed him if we don't catch a fish, but you know how to tie a knot.
So-
Ron, I can't stand it any
I
longer.
can't either, Joey. Let's go get some fish.
Let's
What do
go
you
get some fishing.
think?
As Joey earlier pointed out, the Savage Worm is perhaps the single most effective lure used on West Point Lake. Its unique action when rigged Carolina style and wide range of colors make it a winner regardless of the season or condition of the water. The Ron Savage Worm is most effective when fished slowly. After casting, retrieve it by raising your rod tip just inches at a time. When you feel the bass take the worm, reel in the slack and set the hook.
Got him.
Lean over here, won't even get the net. Bring it on in there, son. I'm trying. I'm getting it. Here it comes. Look at here. There we go. There you go.
Look at there, what a fish. Look at that.
You know what's wrong with that fish?
What's wrong with that fish, Joey?
He's on your line, not mine. This is a good example of a West Point bass. We've got one, well, he'll go about 8 pounds.
He'll go about easily 4, I'd say.
Yeah.
Joey.
He'll go a good 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Nice little old fish. I did a good job on that one.
Put
I
him
did
in
a
the
good
live
job.
well there, Joey.
Let's throw him back.
You want to throw it
We're
back?
going to throw him back.
All right.
We're going to let this fish swim. Just let him on back
Let
in.
some of these folks come to West Point
There
Lake
you
and
go.
catch that fish.
There you go.
There you go.
Boy, you did good on that.
Look at that. Look at that.
Boy, don't be catching all these fish.
Look at that.
He's back into the boat on me now. That's all he's
Look
doing.
at him come up out there. Look
He's
at that.
getting ready
That's
to
a
jump.
good. That's a good one.
I'm not going to net any more fish, buddy.
Look at that.
That's the last
Look
fish
at
you're
that
going to see.
Look at that fish.
Nice little old bass. Nice little old bass.
Look at here. Look at here.
Y'all take a good look at him, because you're not going to see this guy anymore. we're gonna blot him out of the picture. We might not even show you this part of the tape. This is terrible. You're not going to embarrass me, are you?
No, not. See, you need a good pair of needle nose pliers, Joey. You can pick these up at LaGrange Outdoors. You know,
Your one-stop shop.
one stop. Let's let this one go back. What do you think?
Let him go. Let him go. Let him
Look
go.
at that.
Ron, have a seat a minute. I want to close this thing up so we can go catch some more bass. Throughout this video, we have covered the 4 basic seasons. We've covered the fall, we've covered the winter, the spring, and the summer. And one thing Ron has harped on, you can catch them with a Savage Worm throughout the year. Is that
Throughout the year. Joey.
throughout the year? So it's an excellent worm to use. We've taught you and showed you a lot of basic things on how to catch a big bass on West Point Lake. I've graphed areas for you. I've sat down and showed them to you on a map. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen on this video, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that do have questions and say, well, I don't understand that point that you made. Please give me a call at LaGrange Outdoors. You'll probably catch Ron out there. Ron is in and out, and he's bringing me those worms by the thousands. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today. You're going to probably see us again in the next couple of months. We're going to break these seasons down into a lot more detail, and we're going to show you some big old bass that are actually being caught. Until next time, good fishing.
We suggest when you plan your trip to West Point Lake that you make the city of LaGrange your headquarters, bordered on the east by...
Get him out of my way. You realize you're getting the first shot at all these fish going up this bank.
The wind, Joe, it's blowing.
The wind's blowing you. Got a little spot. Little spotted bass.
We ate it up.
Got it all the way down his throat.
Trying to
doesn't he?
swallow it. To get you up there so you won't be fussing with me.
Well, I've got an opportunity to fish some fresh water now. That's a pretty fish.
It's a good eating fish,
Yep.
too. Hard fighter.
Now that is a keeper on this lake.
Yeah.
A spotted bass, there really is no size limit on West Point.
As long as you enjoy the water.
But these largemouths are 16 inches. And to give you a little background of it, it's been probably 7 or 8 years ago now when they changed the size limit. It used to be 12 inches on the bass. And what happened was we had a major gizzard shad crisis. There was too many of them in the lake. A good example, if the lake could hold, say, 400 pounds of fish per acre, over 200 pounds of them were gizzard shad. And gizzard shad are not good to eat by no means, are they, Richard?
No, not really.
And there's not a whole lot you can do with the gizzard shad, and the only fish that could really kill these gizzard shad and eat them is largemouth bass. And it would have to be a fish over 16 inches because you've got a mouth that's yay big that's got to eat a 6 or 8 inch shad. So they changed the size limit to 16 inches, and
Really improved fishing on West Point.
it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable how many 15, 14, 15 and a half inch fish you'll catch in a day, along with a good string of nice 3-4 pound keepers.
It's unbelievable. The impact of what it's done also is that I know you guide all the time, and when you catch 30 or 40 or 50 bass a day and you've got 12 or 15 of them that are over 16 inches, now these are probably 3 pound fish is what
Right.
they'll average. You get people in the habit of throwing the fish back
Right.
because they catch so many of them. This is a lake that is known for numbers, it's known for size, but when you're throwing fish back, it kind of rubs off, and
Yeah.
next thing
They
you
take
know,
it home with them and it helps.
that's probably the best point of all. They're letting these fish go, and now it's snowballing on us. And 7, 8, 10 years ago, you could fish this lake all day long, and if you caught 30 bass a day, which was good then, you wouldn't have but one maybe up 16 inches. Now, if you catch 50 bass, how many would you say would be 16?
On your average day, 8 to 12. That's averaging. You know, you have a lot of days you'll catch more, days you'll catch less, but that's hitting close to home, man.
It makes a world of difference, though. This lake is absolutely tremendous.
And it's pretty much year-round, too, Joe.
Yep.
We got so many fish in here. Even like you say, when the water temperature is 90 degrees, you can still come out
Yep.
and catch a good number of fish.
When is your favorite time to catch?
I guess June's my favorite month. I like March and June. They're on a strong crankbait pattern in March. They first pull up on the points, feeding real strong before they go to the bed. And June, right as they come off the bed.
Now, you hadn't been fishing my points this past year, have you?
Oh, I wouldn't do that, Joe.
I'm sure you wouldn't. I'm sure you wouldn't. We fish a lot of the same areas year after year, and they hold fish year after year.
Every year.
It's
Every year.
unbelievable.
You know, that's what's nice about West Point. You can come down and take a trip. I have a lot of people do it. Mark their map, and they've got year-round fishing because
Sure.
those fish will be right back on them again in the fall. And you can just keep coming back
There's
year after year. Get him.
Yeah, I got him. I
Got
got
it?
it. Yeah. Yeah. Let me get that one out of your way.
Let me get over there with you.
Let me get that one out of your way. Ain't nothing worse than a couple of old guys going fishing and fighting for a hole. Whoop, got away.
What fish?
Now see, when you're a professional, you can shake them off right there.
Long
So,
distance release.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't see a fish just then. I don't know. I thought you had a stick.
The kind of worm, Dixie Doodah.
Boy, it's a good one.
It is a good one. It's about 5 inches long, and it's got 2 little hooks in it. It's got rubber skirt, and it's got a 42-inch leader that comes with it. Here's your leader right here. And what makes it special is Carolina rig. This time of year, that's what you want. You want that Carolina rig on.
You'll get twice the strikes.
This lake is known for fish that sit up off the bottom a foot to possibly 2 foot. And if you're fishing a Texas rig worm, you will probably catch half as many or even less. So there's no comparison. This is the kind of rig, and the colors vary from day to day. We started out with a smoking blue today, of which is probably the #1 color on West Point Lake by far. But the problem, if you look around us, we've got cloud cover. Looks like it's getting ready to rain. Smoking blue is high bright sun.
Right. Darker colors when you got cloud cover. Late in the evenings, early morning, use a darker worm.
Yep. And this is holding true today. We've got a dark red worm. We're calling it plum. And that's the one they want. We came through here with a smoking blue a few minutes ago and did not get a strike. And we threw the plum in there, and it made all the difference in the world.
Stump.
Lose them things. We got plenty of them.
They get too expensive.
Don't ever go after your worms. Always lose as many as you can. Both of you will lose 20 to 50 a day. Lead included.
I'm gonna be lazy, Joe. Let me cut this green one off.
Yes, sir. We like to lose as many of those as we